Hello and welcome, everybody. This is 3 o'clock here in Budapest, and to wait everybody, let's start the webinar in 1 minute. Hello and welcome to Gold Standard Diagnostics next webinar session. Today we will speak about gluten contamination, a challenge that can be managed with appropriate approach and proper analysis tools. Next slide, if we can move. Today I have a pleasure to host this webinar together with my colleague Cristina Romero, who is our product manager and expert on allergens. I am Gabor Kohut, Sales Director of Europe, Middle East and Africa. Just some housekeeping for the beginning. You may have questions during the session, and please feel free to register your question to the chat box, as you see in this slide. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, and we try to cover all the questions what you have asked. If some questions remain unanswered, you still feel free to contact here in this email address what you also see in the slide. Quickly about Gold Standard Diagnostics. So Gold Standard Diagnostics is a fast-growing global provider of diagnostic test solutions. We manufacture test kits, lab consumables. We are owning technologies which have leading ELISA-based and PCR-based automation platforms. We are supporting almost all the testing fields in the diagnostic markets: food, feed, environmental, animal health, biopharma, and clinical markets. After this very small reminder, let me go to the agenda. Today, we will be speaking about the role of gluten as a trigger for different diseases, possible substitutes for gluten, the importance of gluten detection as a part of the gluten management. You will be hearing our solutions, Gold Standard Diagnostic solutions for the testing, and we will close the session with question and answers. And with this brief introduction, let me give the floor to my colleague, Cristina. Cristina, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Gabor, and thank you very much to all of you for attending this webinar. So as Gabor has mentioned, we are going to start explaining like an introduction about what is the role of gluten in the food industry and why it's so frequently used as part of many products in the food industry. So gluten is a complex mixture of proteins, and they are classified in two different groups, prolamines and glutenins. Within the prolamine group, we can find the gliadin from wheat, secalin from rye, and ordain from barley. So gluten contribute to create structures and interaction which are essential to determine the dough quality of bread and other baked products. So it means that the gluten is the responsible that the bread and other baked products has the organoleptic characteristics that we know. So they are soft, and spongy, right? In addition, gluten is very heat stable and has the capacity to act as a binding and extending agent, and it means that it's commonly used as an additive in some other different processed food to improve the texture, to moisture retention, and for improve the flavor. So it means that we can find gluten not only in bread and baked products, but also in other products like sweets, ice cream, fries, where we cannot imagine that maybe gluten could be there. The diseases associated to gluten ingestion mainly is the celiac disease, but also we can find gluten intolerance. Both are different. Celiac disease is an autoimmune disease and causes damage in the small intestine. And in the case of gluten intolerance, it's completely different. It can cause some other symptoms, but not in the small intestine. And also, celiac disease has some genetics root that, while there are no identified biological markers in the case of gluten intolerance. But in both cases, the symptoms are triggered by consuming gluten, and both can be treated only by following a gluten-free diet. So this is why we are going to see which are the adequate gluten substitutes to create gluten-free products and how to manage the gluten within the food industry. As an official definition, a gluten-free food is consisting of or made only from one or more ingredients which do not contain wheat, rye, barley, or oats. As you can see here, with wheat, we also include all the triticum species, such as durum, spelt, corazon, etc. And in the case of oats, we find some specific case, because oats can be tolerated by most people who are intolerant to gluten. So it means that food containing oats shall be labeled as gluten-free. However, the word oats in the local language of every country shall be clearly displayed in the label. So it means that gluten-free oats, with gluten-free oats, we mean oats that are not contaminated or not containing wheat, rye, or barley, are actually one of the main substituting gluten in many countries. But apart of oats, we can find some other gluten-free options, mainly rice and maize. You can find mainly cookies or cereals based on rice and maize, but also buckwheat, teff, chickpea flour, lentil flour. So currently, it's true that if you go to the supermarket, you can find many options for gluten-free products. But in all cases, which is very important, is that no cross-contamination should be with wheat, rye, or barley in any case of this product. So to assure this no contamination, we need to follow a system, an HACCP system should be implemented. It includes a risk assessment ensuring the avoidance of gluten contamination during all stages. I mean, production, storage, transportation, and handling. So right now we are going to see some of them. So sorry, I'm trying to move the, okay. So regarding the ingredients, the gluten contamination shall be excluded and certified either by independent and accredited gluten testing laboratory or through appropriate in-house control. Here and in this kind of point is where the screening rapid testing play an important role. Also, during packaging, transportation, and logistics, we should consider that packaging shall be clean, original, undamaged, labeled within the best before date of the product. And all, of course, transportation condition of ingredients shall be organized in such a way that any accidental cross-contact with gluten is avoided. So it means these kind of things are obvious, seems quite evident, but all of them are necessary if we want to label any kind of gluten product as gluten-free. Some other points in this case, in the factory itself, in the production, the food shall be separated in place and or in time, preferably in place, but if not, at least in a different time production moment. When the same production lines and equipped are used, the following actions shall be performed. cleaning operation that ensure there can be no mixing or any kind of cross contact with the gluten-free product and the gluten itself, and appropriate sampling and analysis according to the risk assessment. Of course, another important point is the staff training. So the staff involved in the production shall be trained in the hazard of gluten cross contact. Their clothes shall be clean and changed in accordance with the risk management procedures. So this is something quite general in a food industry, but specifically very, very important to avoid this kind of cross-contamination with allergens and specifically with gluten. Of course, the staff cannot use the same kind of clothes when they are having lunch that when they are in the production site manufacturing the gluten-free product. And one of the most important points here for us is the gluten analysis. So gluten analysis shall be done regularly on the basis of a plan for sampling and analysis. So the general recommendation currently is that we should not only rely on certificates from suppliers, but also to test on site in case of potential risk. So here again, the rapid test method to be performed on site for screening play a very important role. And also, it's very important to consider that the gluten analysis of the final product shall take place even when ingredients have been tested, because sometimes even if we are sure that the ingredients we are going to use are gluten-free, when we prepare the final mixture, we need to also be sure that it's gluten-free, because this final product is the one that is going to be finally in the supermarket and in the hands of the potential celiac patient. So this gluten analysis link to a following point, which is the different techniques for gluten detection and quantification. So first of all, probably all of you knows about the ELISA method for allergen detection in general. In the case of gluten, we want to talk about the R5 sandwich ELISA, which is the official analysis method according to Codex. And this method detects the prolamins from wheat, rye, and barley that, as we mentioned in the beginning, these are the ones potentially risky for celiac or gluten intolerance patients. So the technical basis of this technique is, as you can see here in a very schematic figure, we have a plate with small wells. When we have the monoclonal antibody, the R5 monoclonal antibody, we have it coating the plate. Then we add the sample. If the sample is positive, which is here is represented by this orange ball, then it will bind to the antibodies which are coating the plate. Then in the next step, we add the conjugate. The conjugate usually is the same monoclonal antibody, but is also bound to an enzyme. This enzyme, when finally it's added the substrate, change the color of the substrate from transparent to blue color. And this blue color will finally be transformed in yellow color when we stop the reaction. So this is a quantitative method because the final intensity yellow color that we get into the well is proportional to the amount of gluten that we have in the sample. So we can prepare a standard curve and we can quantify the amount of gluten in our samples. The other main method is the lateral flow test. So these are, that probably all of you know this kind of testing. We are talking about the same kind of testing as the COVID that we use in-house. So they are mainly focused for rapid in-house control of raw material and surfaces, as well as to check the effectiveness of cleaning procedures and production equipment. So this kind of is the kind of testing is the one that you can see here. So in fact, we are also talking about a sandwich ELISA, but in this case, it is performing a different surface. It is performed in a strip instead in a well. And they say advance through the strip. We'll see it better later. As you probably know, there are no regulated limits for allergens. There are no legislation about limits for allergens, but it is for gluten. So according to the Codex, if a product contains less than 20 ppm of gluten, then it can be labeled as gluten-free. If it contains between 20 and 100 ppm, it can be labeled as low gluten. And if it contains higher than 100 ppm, then it can be labeled or should be labeled as containing gluten, right? So to be honest, the second option between 20 and 100 ppm low gluten content is not really something that the industry uses a lot because, well, it's not really practical for the celiac patient. So usually below 20 is labeled as gluten-free, and above 20, it is indicated as an ingredient or as containing gluten. So now, according to this, we are going to see the full solution that we can offer from GSD for gluten detection. So we have, of course, this SensiSpec ELISA kit for gluten detection based on the R5 reference method. We also have the LFD SensiStrip for detection gluten too. Regarding automation, we can offer ELISA Reader for the SensiSpec ELISA kit. Also automation, bolt and the Thunderbolt, what we will see later more in detail, and also the possibility of quantification of the LFD's kit by using the Rapid Scan Reader. And also we can offer something quite unique, which is the gluten spiking solution and the allergen control material. So starting for the ELISA kits or the gluten R5 solution we currently have disposable available 3 different ELISA kits. First of all, the SensiSpec InHefin Gluten R5 kit. This kit has been granted by the AOSC to be used with gluten-free bread, oat flour, and stainless steel surfaces. So the limit of detection or the sensitivity is quite high. We are talking about 3 ppm of gluten, which is quite below the 20 ppm indicated by the codex. It is the perfect kit to be used for the laboratories if they want to be ISO 17025 accredited. It includes no toxic reagent. Any of the reagent is toxic, so there is no need to use the kit under a fume hood because there is no bad smell, there is no toxic at all. And all the material is included in the extraction buffer for heat-treated sample, which is something that is highly necessary, is already included into the kit. No need to buy it separately. Regarding the other kits, we have the SensiSpec InHefin Gluten Quick, which is very similar in performance to the one that we have just mentioned. The main difference is that it has shorter incubation times for the ELISA steps. So instead of 1 hour, it's 20 minutes of incubation time. We also have a specific kit for hydrolyzed samples. So it is designed for the detection of fermented or partially hydrolyzed gluten, like mainly beer, syrup, or sourdough. Here, we really can talk about a very high sensitivity, so 1.25 ppm of gluten. The extraction procedure for liquid samples, in this case, liquid sample mainly we have validated with beer, also with whiskey, but mainly beer, it's only 5 minute extraction by using ethanol. It also, that's the same as the other kit, it includes no toxic reagent, and the extraction buffer for heat-treated samples are also included into the kit. So for reading this ELISA kit, we can also offer this BioNoe reader, which personally I love it because it's quite compact, easy to use, cost-effective, and well, the size is just for a plate, so it's very convenient for small or big laboratories, and it's compatible with all kind of plates that you are using in GSD, but also from other brand names. And by default, it includes the typical filter that we use for the ELISA, but also it can be customized for specific needs of the customer. Regarding the automated process, well, of course, all this ELISA can be done manually, but in this case, we maybe need an incubator or a washer machine, or at least a squeeze bottle for the washing steps, and of course, we need a reader. But we also, when the volume is high enough, we also offer the possibility of a fully automated system. In fact, we have 2 fully automated systems, the Bolt and the Thunderbolt. The main difference is that the Bolt is designed to test 1 plate, while the Thunderbolt is designed to test 2 plates, right? So the idea here is that the instrument performs the whole ELISA process. So you can put all the reagent and the plate, design the software, the program, and then you can leave the instrument working even during night. And when the ELISA is finished, you get a full report with all the calculation already done. So it's very, very convenient, and more customers are already using it. Because you can also use for other allergens and also other parameters like mycotoxin, for example. Regarding the spiking solutions, this is something quite unique that you can find in the market. So they are vials with high concentrated gliadin standard solution for fortifying the sample. So they are the perfect tool for the validation process. So when you want to validate the kit in your lab, because the customers can prepare the samples to the concentration that they want, 10 ppm, 20 ppm. And also, you can test the matrix validation. So, for example, if you want to know that if some specific complicated matrix may have some matrix effect and reduce or amplify the optical density value, with this spiking solution, then you can spike with 20 ppm and then check if the recovery is correct, right? And also, of course, for a continuous quality assessment during your everyday workflow in the lab. We also offer the allergen control material. In this case, we are not talking about a liquid. So in this case, it's a matrix already spiked with different concentration of different allergens. So in fact, and you can see here, we have 4 different control material, each one of them containing a few allergens. In the case of gluten, it is included in the first one, what we have called key allergen control material, because it includes the main allergens that are analyzed, the high runners in the labs, right? Or in the industry, gluten, milk, soy, and egg. But you can also see here, so this control material is just like a sample, so you can extract it as a normal sample, and then you get the value that is mentioned in the QC of the material. Then you can check that you are doing the ELISA procedure or whatever the procedure correctly. You can also see that we have this control material for other allergens like maritime, crustacean, fish, and mollusks, all the nuts, and also some other allergen sheet like lupin, mustard, and sesame. And now let's go to once we have finished with the ELISA kit, let's go to LFD portfolio. Here is the complete list of LFD allergens we have available. So you can see it's the most comprehensive list in the market, including even all the nuts. And you can see here that the kits have been validated for food matrices, surface samples, and also rinse water. And we offer them in a format of 20 strips, and now quite recently also in a new 5-strip format is also available. This is quite convenient for small companies and for some other consultancy industries. So this is really something that could be very useful. But if we focus on the gluten one, so the gluten LFD kit includes a monoclonal antibody which has an identical behavior that the R5 antibody has for the gluten proteins. So, well, of course, there's a complete validation about that you can check in our documents. But right now, the kit has sensitivity for food matrix is 4 ppm. So you can see it's also quite low compared with the 20 ppm required by the codex, and also very low LOD or very high sensitivity for swabbing and wastewater sample. And here I would like to get into detail in something quite new that we are about to launch in the market, which is a new power line LFD, and we will start with the gluten kit, right? And for this, I would like to talk a little bit with you about the hook effect. So by definition, the hook effect is an immunologic phenomenon whereby the effectiveness of antibodies can be impaired when concentration of an antibody or an antigen are very high. So this effect is mainly related with the LFD technique, not with the ELISA, only with the LFD technique. So it means that when the concentration of the allergen is too high, the intensity of the test line starts to decrease. This is the hook effect. So with the new LFD power line, we overcome this limitation by including a third line, indicating if a negative result comes from an excess of gluten concentration and the consequent hook effect. So how do we interpret the results in this game for this bit of power LFD? So as you can see here, now instead of having only two lines, I mean the test line and the hook line, we have three lines. So we have the test, the hook, and the control line. Of course, the control line needs to appear always because it means that the test has been done properly. If it does not appear, it means that something has happened and you need to repeat the testing. But for the other two lines, you can see in the example number 1, we have no test line, but we have a hook line. It means that the sample is negative. So because we have no test line. In the second and the third examples, we clearly see a test line. It means that both are positive. But in the third example, we see that the hook line has already disappeared. It means that the sample starts to be quite high. And in number 4, we see that there is no test line and there is no hook line. So here's when we see the difference between example number 1 and example number 4. In both cases, we cannot see test line. So we could think that these both are negative samples. But thanks to the hook line, we can differentiate between number 1, which is a negative sample, and number 4, which is a very high positive sample, in a way that the test line has disappeared because of the hook effect. So this is the idea, that we will be able to differentiate between negative and very, very high positive samples. So the way that we can proceed with this gluten hook effect line, so it's very, very simple, as you can see here. So first of all, we need to prepare the sample extraction. As always, in the case of gluten, you know that the proteins for gluten are only soluble in ethanol. So we need to add ethanol and then perform a dilution step and transfer to incubation vial. And dearly, with no other additional step, we can place the strip into the vial and wait only 5 minutes and then interpret the results, or at least see the results. So we can perform, as we have just mentioned, a qualitative interpretation of the result, a visual one, or here we can offer you the option of making a quantification of the results of the strips, right? So for this, we can use the LFD Reader. So this reader is a highly flexible and easy to use platform used for lateral flow assays. And it has been specifically designed for field and in-process application. It's also compatible with some other kits from Gold Standard Diagnostics. So it can be also used for mycotoxin, not only allergen, also for mycotoxin, GMO, water analysis, and glyphosate. So we provide only one platform for a wide range of rapid food safety analysis. It's a very user-friendly, it's very easy to use, very intuitive. So the screen is just, well, we will see right now exactly how to proceed with it. It's very, very intuitive to understand. It's portable. It means that it has a battery, so you can take it with you to any part of the industry site to take the samples. It's flexible, so if you change the adapter, you can use it for the different parameters, as we have just mentioned, so allergen, mycotoxin, GMO. Standalone, because you can store data, and also you can export this data by using an USB port. So you can keep this data for a long time. So now let's go and see how to run a test and making an interpretation of the results with the RapidScan. So first of all, you need to run the test according to the instruction for use of the kit. And once you have the strips with the result, then you place the gluten strips in the allergen strip adapter. And then insert the strip adapter in the reader inlet, which is the black hole that you can see here. Then press the button which indicates read strip. Then you need to select, of course, the kind of kit the method that you want to use. In this case would be the sensitive gluten powered. The dilution usually is one, and then fill the sample name. So we have name it cake mix as usually that we do in FAPA samples, and start analysis. In about 30 seconds, even less than 30 seconds, you can get the result. So in the case of the gluten hook line or power line, these are the different results that we can see. First, if the sample is negative, you will see that the result is below, showing up as below 4 ppm, because it's the limit of detection of the kit. When the sample is positive, but within the range of quantification of the kit, so between 4 and 80 ppm, so you can get a number. In this case, it's 11.9 ppm of gluten. But the sample is above the higher quantification range, 80 ppm, so it will be displayed as above 80 ppm of gluten. And in the case it's a very, very positive sample, then it will mention to you, or it will display hook effect. So if you can see here, the line in the middle, which is the hook line, it has completely disappeared. So we can only see that the blue color that the rapid scan is reading, but there is not hook line. So it means that it's a very, very positive sample. So these are the 4 options that you can get with the rapid scan. So in the case of any allergen, it's very useful, but in the case of gluten, it's especially very convenient, because as we have a threshold of 20 ppm, it's very convenient to be able to know a number. If we are talking about a contamination of 15 ppm or 100, for example, or 90. So as a summary, the gluten power line is easy to use lateral flow format, which is giving a rapid and accurate on-site test. The kit is provided with all the necessary material to perform 50 or 20 individual analyses per kit. It is one-step process. So it means that after the extraction, you just need to put the strip on the strut and then wait the 5 minutes of incubation time, which is quite shorter time. It has a high sensitivity and specificity thanks to the internal design that we have in the strip and in the vials, and also because of the monoclonal antibodies that we are using in the strips. We offer the possibility of the quantification in a range between 4 and 80 ppm with rapid scan reader, and we also offer the possibility of detecting the hook effect with the hook effect line in case we test high concentrated samples. Anyway, at this point, I would also like to mention that the idea, of course, the aim of this kind of rapid method, or even the ELISA, is detect traces, right? If there has been some kind of contamination. So if of course, if gluten is like an ingredient, or wheat is an ingredient in the sample, it makes no sense to take an analysis. But anyway, just in case, this way we are always in the safe side. So with this, I would like to conclude that right now GSD have a comprehensive testing solution. So an adequate control and gluten management is one of the current challenges in the food industry. Not only gluten, we can mention that in general all the allergen, and is one of the most important considerations that we have in the food industry. And GSD offers all possible solutions and support to approach the challenge from different angles, assuring the reliability of the industry and, of course, the safety on the end consumer, which at the end, this is the aim that we are all looking for, right? The safety of the celiac patient in this case, but in general, the consumer. And with this, I would like to tell all of you, thank you so much.
Well, it seems we have finished the questions for today. With that, thank you very much, Christina, for the interesting lecture and interesting discussion we had. And thank you very much for your attention, who were watching us. And with that, let me close the session and stay tuned for our next webinar. Watch out at our website and on LinkedIn channel for further information. Thank you very much and have a great remaining of the day.
Okay, thank you so much to all of you. Have a nice day.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.